Okay, so let's start with the breaking news. I don't even know if it's considered breaking news when it comes to the feds. Like, I don't think it's breaking news. I think it's just the news. This is what they do. Well, I have it now on a very well-placed authoritative source that the FBI is putting an absurd amount of pressure right now on the authorities in Utah and also the rest of the government in Utah to come out and to say that the Charlie Kirk case is closed. They want it over. They want Charlie's assassination to be officially ruled lone gunman. It was a lone gunman that did that. Nobody else is involved. Now, why would they? Why would they want that? Right? What are they saying, at least to the authorities? Are they saying like, this is the reason? And I'm sure they're not coming out and being honest or saying something that might ring truer to us, the public, which would be them saying, well, we know who did this and we want to protect those people, so close the case. What they're actually saying instead is essentially, if you don't close the case against Charlie Kirk and rule it a lone gunman, then it might mess up our prosecution against Tyler Robinson. That feels a little bit to me like moral blackmail. Hey, man, we're not hiding anything, but we've got this guy, Tyler Robinson. If you don't close this case, then it might harm our chances of locking this guy up. Yeah, I'm sure. I am sure that they are being just moral. I'm sure they're telling the truth to the authorities. Now, I want to remind you guys, we should take a look at their current case against Tyler Robinson to see if we should accept this narrative, because currently, there is absolutely no video which shows Tyler Robinson firing the weapon or even taking aim at Charlie Kirk. In fact, the individual who filmed the footage of the shooter on the roof, the lone video that exists of the shooter on the roof, also told me that he doesn't think that Tyler Robinson is the guy. So how's that going to work for an eyewitness account? When he reported the shooter on the roof to Utah on the campus, he was clear that the person was wearing an entirely different outfit than the ones that they're currently trying to claim that Tyler wore on that day. Remember, Tyler was just supposed to be wearing a t-shirt and some jeans. He says, no, he was in tactical gear. The person that I saw was in tactical gear. Also, that eyewitness told me that gun doesn't even match what I saw. And like I said, this individual definitively has experience with guns. He teaches people how to fire guns. So according to him and what he observed, if he's going to be brought into this court case that they're saying they want to, they want to bring charges against Tyler, he's going to testify and say, no, that doesn't look like the gun. That doesn't look like the person. So how's this going to work? Also, according to the individual that told me this regarding the feds trying to push for this case closure, the feds don't even have any footage that explains how exactly the rifle in particular got onto the roof. That stuns me. That's stunning information, right? Because all we have is, well, in the indictment, he dropped onto the roof at 12:15 p.m. Tyler Robinson just dropped onto the roof. I guess in our minds, we assumed on the basis of the picture that they released the sole picture or set of pictures from the same moment of him walking up the stairs. We assumed that he, like I said, stanky-legged it, the whole stanky leg all the way up onto the rooftop. That was our perception. But it turns out, according to my source, they don't know how the rifle got onto the roof. That's interesting. How are we bringing this to trial? Now, regarding the bullet, the source says that it was too fragmented to match Tyler's rifle, so they don't have even the bullet. And let us not forget that Tyler himself has not confessed to anything. And that part also didn't make sense. They said they brought him in, Bill Ackman puts up $1 million, Tyler's dad gets the sheriff friend to come over, and they say he did it, and the police come and they bring him in. They bring Tyler Robinson in, but Tyler Robinson doesn't confess. So how did you arrest him? Does that make sense? How could you make an arrest if you didn't have a confession? You would have to have evidence, and the evidence can't be trust my dad, bro. You can't, if I just bring in a random person, if I say, oh, look, Skylar just committed this crime and Skylar says, no, I didn't, and he doesn't confess, the police can't just make an arrest. You can just arrest Skylar. Nothing is making sense at all. It has not made sense from the very beginning, okay? And that's because the feds are involved. And I believe the feds know exactly what happened. In fact, I don't think it's a stretch of imagination when we examine history to assume that they maybe even had some foreknowledge. Not everybody, obviously, because some people are trying to get the information out and are trying to figure out what happened. But we know that there are people that are a part of that apparatus who are terrible human beings, who we do not want ruling over us, and yet they do. So I'm just curious how exactly they believe they are going to convict Tyler Robinson on this. Oh, you know what? It's probably the Discord messages. I forgot. Silly me. The Discord, I forgot he was so explicit. How could we forget? Oh, Lance, wherefore art thou, Lance? Deny thy father and refuse thy name? And if thou wilt not, Lance, the bullet, me, my handprints, it was me. It was me, my love. I did everything. I carved it. Do you remember, my love, when I was carving the bullets? Yes. Exactly this time is when I did it. And these are the reasons, my MAGA daddy, my love, thou wilt not, my story. Very cool story, feds. Kind of feeling like Tyler's going to get off because they've got really nothing but prints. And from my sources, it's not the only set of prints that are on that gun. In fact, the only thing that I have heard that made sense, which did not come from our government, did not come from the feds, did not come from the Utah government, but rather from the people that are on the ground who believe that actually Tyler was just told to walk and drop off his gun at a neighboring house. That for some reason just feels like that might be honest, and that was how he participated in this event. But we'll see, because I'm not going to let this go. So we'll see if the feds tell us to just dismiss it, as they always do. You know, rather relatedly, something that I wanted to tell you yesterday, we had showed you a clip of Charlie discussing our friendship and how he was feeling morally blackmailed over it. And in that same clip, he mentions a very fond memory that I have, that he was there when I met my husband, and he says it's a really fun story. And it is a fun story. It's actually a totally fun, crazy story of how I met my husband, because I had something that came over me, and that's the only way I can describe it. And I get all of the conspiracies online when people were like, there's no way her and her husband got engaged after 18 days. That's exactly how it happened. Okay. I didn't know him. I never even saw his face 18 days prior. And I'm with Charlie. We're hitting the ground running. And I'm just like, I feel compelled that we must go to the UK. It was, when I say, the most overpowering thing ever. I was like, Charlie, we got to go to the UK. We got to go to the UK. We should go to the UK. We should go to London. And he's like, man, why? Why do you want to go to London? I'm like, I don't know. I just feel like we're supposed to be there. I feel like we've got to be there for an event. And I did something that I had never done. I took Charlie Kirk's credit card, and I was like, I'm going to find flights and just book it. And then you just figure out, maybe it means we're supposed to start, Turning Point UK. If there's energy there, that was a part of his vision. He wanted Turning Point to be global, and he had people that were interested in the UK. And so I'm showing you this very old text message chain from that time between me and Charlie, where I never booked flights, looked at flights, but I booked these flights. And I was like, look, the flights are dirt cheap. From NYC to London, $450 in coach, or $1,200 in first class. And he's like, wow, let's book it. All right. And we booked the flights. And then suddenly I realized the reason that I had this overwhelming feeling to be there was because I was supposed to be my husband. And the only thing I can say is that it was an intuition. We describe it, that it had to have been God. We had just had no other reason to be there. And then Charlie set up a speaking event with some people that had been interested. And sure enough, we were there to help Turning Point UK get set up. Anyways, this overwhelming feeling, I had never experienced something like that since, until about a week before, or actually, 10 days before Charlie got assassinated. And so I'm going to explain that to you, because you guys who watch this podcast might have realized something, that we took the show off air randomly for the first couple of days in September. So I will describe to you exactly what happened. There at first was a elementary school shooting that happened at a Catholic school, and I was just concerned in a way that I had never felt so impacted. And I was going, something isn't right. Something is just not right. And I felt that there was some sort of an infiltration that was happening at schools. And the best way that I can describe it in a sentence is that I sensed that the danger wasn't stopping there and that more was coming, and that I needed to take time, take a look at just the process of hiring people at the school that my children were going to attend. And I did just a cursory online search, and some messages I found, which were not written by a teacher at the school, but someone who was adjacent to some teachers at the school, gave me pause for concern. In fact, explicitly what it was a Polish underground symbol, like a Polish communist underground symbol that nobody would have recognized outside of people who know what it meant. And I just sort of went, okay, that's weird. I kept looking online, and strangely, I'm not kidding, and I'm going to show you these messages, I came across what looked to me like a bunch of people talking about bees. You're going, Candace, what do you, like literally bees, in a way that the only way I can describe it to you is like they were speaking about bees, but they weren't speaking about bees. It was very coded. And I'm going, am I going crazy? Or do you think that all these people are really actually, quote unquote, bee farmers, or saying that they farm bees? What is this lingo that I'm not understanding? Why do I feel like it's related to students? I didn't feel good about it at all. And I just sensed that we needed to get more involved, to go to the school, to ask about the process of hiring, to see if they needed more security. They were kind of giving up me the thing that teachers do now when you ask any questions about what happens at the school, which is they make you think like, why do you want to know? Like, we just do whatever we want to do. It's like, I don't know. My children are like 5 and 4, actually. Parents should, of course, we need to be more involved. Like, how did we get here that we feel like we're crazy for asking questions about the hiring practices at schools? And the feeling just didn't go away. I can show you this actually, because I was thinking, like, I said to my husband, there is some weird underground, it's like I sense like imminent danger is coming. And for some reason, I feel like there is an underground that has emerged at schools, and it's like related to bees. That's what I said. And I messaged multiple people about this, my sister. Here are a couple of more text messages to other people. You can look at the time frame here. This is 8:30, August 30th. This is September 1st when we went off air. September 2nd, we were off air. And I started talking about people that were discussing bees in a way that didn't make sense. I'm like, I don't know if this is drugs. I don't know what it is, but it's weird. And so in a sentence, I just said, there's imminent danger coming, okay? It is relating to a school. I think it's a communist underground, and I don't know why, but it has something to do with bees. Totally sensible thing to say to your husband. Oh, and we need to hire more security. And we did. We hired more security that very week. And I was just frantic about it. And we made the decision that we needed to homeschool immediately and started the process, pulled our kids out of homeschooling and starting to interview people. But it wasn't enough. Like, despite hiring more security, despite taking my kids out of school, I still had a sense of dread. The Tuesday night, the night before Charlie got assassinated, I had book club, and I felt like I needed to emphasize to people in book club that it was time to take their kids out of school. Like, take your kids out of school. Danger is happening right now. And I'm going to show you a clip. Obviously, this is all behind the paywall of what I said to people that are in the book club. Take a listen. I'm homeschooling my kids. I'm so excited. I'm like very excited I'm embarking on this. Recent decision. And it is just, I can't explain to you when a weight got lifted off from my shoulders, because I was like, I can't just speak about this. Like, we have to do it and show people that it can be done. And I'm so glad that my sister who did it first, because I was like, my sister, it was very difficult for her to do this. She's got to wake up super early, but seeing her do it made me go, my older sister, I was like, what is wrong with me? Of course I can do this. And again, this weight being lifted off my shoulders of like, you don't get my kids. This whole system, this whole matrix, got to send your kids to school so we can what? Indoctrinate them mentally. In some schools, there's abuses that are happening, like, and I just have to take the risk and give you my child, like my small child, and then you're going to gaslight me. This is what happened, actually. I was like asking the school basic questions, like, because I was only going to put them in like, a little daycare program, pre-K program, and like I was like, ask questions like, how do you hire people? And they were like, you don't get to ask those questions. What's wrong with you, Mom? Why are you so scared? I'm like, okay, bye-bye. See you never. Don't make me think that I'm weird for being a mom. Okay. Don't make me believe or try to sell to me this idea that we're sharing these kids. These are your students. These are my kids. And if you don't understand that, that was on September 9th. Okay. Then came September 10th. Obviously, Charlie lost his life. And a few days later, I was told, and I sensed instantly that there was like a hive of people that were involved in this. I just knew it. And when it happened, I just went, oh my goodness. And my gut is telling me that this was the thing, that the dread that I sensed that was coming out of school. And I had no idea. I am not a flag person at all. And then someone told me, and I was astonished that Utah recently, extraordinarily, did modernize their B flag. I had no idea that the Utah state flag is a hexagonal beehive, right? And unbeknownst to me, that it has always been the beehive state. So in 2024, they modernized their flag, but they've always been known as the beehive state. And to be clear, it's not because they make honey. It's not because they have a high presence of bees. In fact, in terms of making honey or bee-related products, they rank number 24. It's actually the beehive state. It relates to the Mormon church, the Church of Latter-day Saints. Early Mormon pioneers founded that state, and they liked the idea of a beehive working toward a common good. Now, if that sounds vaguely familiar or communist to you, the idea of worker bees, yes, that's where it's from. So this sort of doom that I had about an underground happening, I was just like totally freaked out. It's a Soviet symbol, like the idea of making everybody into a worker bee. And whether you're on the left or the right, you should understand where the public school system comes from. Okay, it is shaped by Soviet ideology. I tell people a must-read book is Inside the American Education System by Thomas Sowell. It is not left or right. He is just telling you how it all came together. The decline, the deception, the dogmas, and how they are programming our children. You cannot unread that book after you read it, because you realize there's no such thing as being too hawkish. They know how to get things in there and how to pull children away from their parents, as it was designed in the Soviet system. Okay. Kindergarten, you're like, where does that word even come from? Well, it was established by the communists that tried to overthrow Germany and failed in 1848. Margaret Schurz's, her family came here, and those same communists wanted to make sure that they established kindergarten access to children. They then fought to make sure that we federalized the education system. These are the same people that pushed to make it so that homeschooling is not a thing, right? Like I said, the very reason they wanted to establish public education is because it is essential for radical ideology. They understand something that I think that we have maybe forgotten, which is that children are the most precious resource. The reason for that is because they are the future. One way or another, children are the future, okay? After Charlie's assassination, that feeling still did not dissipate, okay? I understood the imminent doom that I felt that was almost crippling was clearly related to that event, but I just know that all of these random lone shooter narratives that are being intentionally, what we're being told that they're just lone shooters and then we don't really know anything else. I just feel it spiritually that these people are being programmed, and perhaps that is the reason why more often than not, they are being protected by our government. In other words, it is positively foolish for us to believe that the government just cannot tell us anything about these assassins. They wipe everything and they tell us nothing. Why would they do that? Yeah, that guy, they're always working alone. There's no online history that we can reflect on. What are you talking about? Which brings me to Thomas Matthew Crooks, because that's exactly what we were told or not told when on July 13th, 2024, a 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks climbs onto a roof and tries to assassinate President Donald Trump. Gratefully, Donald Trump did not die, but tragically, one of his supporters did, okay? A 50-year-old firefighter named Corey Comparatore lost his life trying to save his children. And then we were told virtually nothing. In fact, we were, and I'm laughing here because it's so absurd, we were told Iran did this. What? Because they were itching for war with Iran. Like, they're still itching for war with Iran, but like that's what basically was a narrative that was established. They had some warnings that Iran was going to try to assassinate Trump, and we're going, what? Well, guess what happened? Somebody reached out to me because I have been obviously leading the forefront in investigating this lone shooter as it pertains to Charlie Kirk, because it's not a lone shooter. It's a hive. I feel it spiritually. And they said, look, actually, I had been able to scrape everything about Thomas Crooks before the feds got rid of everything. And it's shocking what you look at. There is no way this person was not on the federal radar. Now, usually we go, was he on the left? Was he on the right? Because that's the bait. The bait is to make me as a conservative hate you if you were on the left. And if you were on the left, the goal is to make you hate Candace because it allows them to operate in broad daylight. The reality of Thomas Crooks is going to be a story that we should get familiar with. He was at both on the left and on the right. He actually traded sides. He started actually as a Trump supporter. I'm going to show you, and again, to really impress upon you how much this person had to be on the federal radar. I have an 80-page document, which I'm thinking I'm just going to drop on my website tomorrow after handing it over to legal, of all the accounts that he made, all of the statements that he made. And he was at first very angry against the left. Outwardly calling for the murder of people that are on the left. And there were videos that he was posting of himself shooting with no bullets in the gun in his bedroom. I'm going to show you one of those videos that's since been scraped. Don't worry, we blurred the weapon just, to keep things above bar here. Take a look. Now, if you're listening to this and you are on Spotify, is essentially, or on Apple, what's essentially happening here is he's just in his room and there's no bullets in it, but he's practicing firing a weapon. And his online history, there's multiple videos that are like this, which I have. His online history shows he was extraordinarily violent. He was always calling for violence. And I can show you one of his comments that he made. This was a comment on a video Trump humiliated on national TV. And he wrote to someone, haha, that's funny because I always believed being patriotic was lining up a bunch of socialist Jews like the ones that booed Trump and blasting their useless brains out with an AR. Well, to each his own. That's unbelievably violent. Again, another comment where he was commenting on a YouTube video. He wrote, I've noticed a lot of liars talking about the truth in this post. Well, let me tell you some truth. Every one of the Trump-hating Democrats deserves to have their heads chopped off and put on stakes for the world to see what happens when you F with America. So you go, okay, this guy was a Trump supporter. Then he does a radical transformation around 2020. And this had something to do with COVID. He got very angry at Trump and he was outwardly saying things where people were reporting them on YouTube being like, this guy is absolutely insane. He is a maniac. He's a maniac. He was a maniac who was obsessed with Trump one way or the other. And then he went very much, obviously, which is the reason why he tried to assassinate him post-COVID. He just starts going completely crazy, and he is explicitly researching on Google the history of these assassinations. I can show you his search history here. Leading up to this, he searched best places for a mass shooting. Here are some of his other Google searches. I think we can just scroll down here. Yeah, okay, and this has a timeline on this. Again, I'm going to probably just post this document because you can handle the truth. He was fascinated with this stuff. He was fascinated. You can see here, guns versus protesters, Orlando shooting reaction, cars running over protesters, firing an AR-15 as fast as possible, fertilizer bomb. How do you use a tourniquet? How to make a Molotov cocktail, how to make Molotov cocktails, pardon me, mixing gasoline with styrofoam, mass shooting Canada, Oklahoma bombing, sniper in Dallas shooting. You want me to believe on the basis of what I have seen that this individual wasn't on federal radar? Just wasn't on federal radar? Guys, that is a nonsense, okay? That is an absolute nonsense. And again, the other element of this is we're never going to be told what therapists he was seeing, okay? What his mom's walking in the room. He's practicing how to shoot. It's very clear what you can see in the background. He's practicing shots. They want us to believe that this just happened by accident, even though for years he was documenting wanting to harm politicians and people that were on the left and people that were on the right. Again, on the basis of everything, whether it was their race, their color, whether they were homosexual, there's something there for everyone. So what's happening here? Well, I can tell you my suspicion. I think that this is a program. I do. I don't know, but I know. You know? I don't know, but I know. Because it is giving me the same ick that I had when I was looking through the period and learning the reality of what happened throughout the 1960s when MK Ultra, when that program was running. And I have no reason to believe that that program was ever discontinued. And I believe that they find these candidates in schools. I really do. I think they find these candidates in schools. And so I wanted to express that to you, that we, once again, are having a predicament, and we can trace this straight from what they did to when JFK was assassinated, where the feds are obscuring. They are using journalists to obscure. They are putting pressure on government officials. They are lying to the public about everything, except this time it's regarding Charlie Kirk, which means this time it's not going to fly because I'm not going to allow it to. All right, guys, wanted to get to Jimmy Kimmel. He's back on air. I guess it was a little time out for Jimmy Kimmel. I was very shocked to see people on the right who were kind of cheering on his cancellation. And I'm not denying the logic of it, going, this has happened to so many people on the right, so when it happens to you, boo-hoo. I get that. But also, if we just keep playing ping pong, nobody wins, and actually except for the government. And I think that's the reason that this sport has been created, left versus right. And Jimmy Kimmel delivered a monologue and thanked people on the right in his very Jimmy Kimmel way. And I got a shout out for saying, hey, common sense, the government should not be getting involved when it comes to speech. That's insane. We cannot cheer that on. Take a listen to his monologue.
I want to thank the people who don't support my show and what I believe, but support my right to share those beliefs anyway. People who I never would have imagined, like Ben Shapiro, Clay Travis, Candace Owens, Mitch McConnell, Rand Paul, even my old pal Ted Cruz, who, believe it or not, said something very beautiful on my behalf.
I hate what Jimmy Kimmel said. I am thrilled that he was fired.
Oh, wait, no, not that. The other part.
But let me tell you, if the government gets in the business of saying,
what you
we
can
don't
and can't
like
say
what you, the media, have said, we're going to ban you from the airwaves if you don't say what we like. That will end up bad for conservatives.
I don't think I've ever said this before, but Ted Cruz is right. He's absolutely right. This affects all of us, including him. I mean, think about it. If Ted Cruz can't speak freely, then he can't cast spells on the Smurfs. Even though I don't agree with many of those people on most subjects, some of the things they say even make me want to throw up. It takes courage for them to speak out against this administration, and they did, and they deserve credit for it. And thanks.
Feeling is mutual. There are some things you say that make me want to throw up as well. But it is important that we realize government overreach is government overreach. Doesn't matter who it's happening under, whether it's Biden or whether it's Trump, it's wrong. Okay. And by the way, both sides have been guilty of government overreach. So less of us taking the bait on that. I also want to say, I wanted to show you guys this clip of Megyn Kelly. It's gone pretty viral. It's everywhere, speaking about something that I did not know about, which is pertaining to a hex and a curse that Charlie Kirk and Erica Kirk were worried about. It's kind of a very shocking story. And I just want to preempt this by saying that for those of you that don't understand that this is a spiritual war that we are fighting, you might have been like me years ago, and I referred to us as the Muggles. Of course, there are people who believe in all of this stuff, and there are people who put spells on people, and they are meaningful. They follow numerology, and it's serious. That is serious, and you think that it's not because they have made our society so plastic and there's no substance anymore, and we are so distracted. But these people who rule over us, okay, they know who they worship. They know they worship Luciferianism. And so I was very alarmed that this had happened. And I honestly had wished that Charlie had reached out to me. even though they did end up consulting a Catholic priest, I didn't expect, I wish I could have given them the exact person, but take a listen to how Megyn Kelly shares what happened, a curse that was put on Charlie just before he went out to UVU.
I learned when I was out in Arizona last week that 2 weeks before Charlie Kirk was assassinated, the far-left website Jezebel declared that it had a mission to cast bad luck or a curse on Charlie. They wanted to hurt him in some way. They declared, quote, if the far-right misogynist with a bad haircut wants to villainize independent women, Jezebel is more than happy to be the hag of his nightmares. And they went on to the website Etsy, yes, Etsy, to, quote, cast a curse on him. Yes, this is actually a thing. Etsy, the website known for making arts and crafts on demand, will happily cast a hex through its witches, who you can hire, on someone if you ask them to. Erica and Charlie Kirk heard about these curses, and that news genuinely rattled Erica in particular. She knew Christian teaching on this subject. She loved Charlie, absolutely. And she was scared when she heard of the curses Jezebel had called up. So much so that she and Charlie contacted a friend who I believe she said was a Catholic priest, but definitely a friend, and asked him to come over and pray with them over Charlie the night before he was murdered. She eventually worked it through, and so did Charlie. That, as she later told me, weapons will form but not prosper. That Satan and those witches have no power.
Honestly, no one wants to think about HIV, but there are things that everyone can do to help prevent it.
So just to add a little color to the story, I think that the people who did this and what we've learned about those women is I think they were probably who hired, people that did the hiring were probably trying to be funny. People that don't believe in spiritual forces were probably just like, LOL, it's like Vice. It's like, Vice publication. Like, I smoked a blunt and, listened to the Beatles music backwards. Like, it's like they don't take that stuff seriously. So they're trying to be like, haha, funny headline, right? And the person who wrote the article about it said, I'm not calling on dark forces to cause him harm. I just want him to wake up every morning with an inexplicable zit, right? So she's probably trying to be funny, to be fair, but contacted witches who are not trying to be funny. That's the problem when people don't understand that this stuff is real, that you're saying to a witch, yeah, I'll pay for you. I'm going to reach out to you to pay for you to put a curse on Charlie. And that witch did that. And it brought, obviously you can see, they were distressed by this. They consulted a Catholic priest who I assume would have immediately conducted an exorcism. That probably should have been done in the Latin rite. But I feel like that's just something that people should know, because until something happens to you spiritually, you tend not to believe in these things. And like I said, that's a part of this. They very much know what religion they follow, the numbers, the numerology. It makes sense to them, the people that are in control of this world. And you should just be very cautious of that stuff. A lot of times I kind of give this example. It's like they can sell us anything as reality. Like we are now in this culture of what C.S. Lewis refers to as scientism. As long as they say like it's science, it's not weird, then we don't realize that, no, I think these are spiritual forces. Like if a witch was like, ha, here's a potion, take it, it works, you'd be like, oh, that's so crazy. I don't believe in witch potions. But like a doctor can create something and it makes you, and you're like, oh, of course, but this is like backed by science. It's like, okay, by any other name sort of a thing. You know what I mean? But this stuff is real, and I'm glad that the end result thus far of how it has impacted society to watch Charlie be assassinated, even though we don't know who exactly was behind this, we know it was more than one person, is that people are going back to church, and that they had that instinct when they watched it. They suddenly realized, whoa, they got hit spiritually, even if they hadn't been to church in years. I was getting comments, I haven't been to church in 20 years. And for some reason, watching the death of Charlie Kirk made me know that I needed to go to church. That is at least one thing in this. And there have been other things that has made me very happy. Anyways, I want to make sure I have time for your comments, because we do have book club tonight, and I'm going to build upon what we're speaking over these last 2 weeks. This book we're reading is very important, the Assault on Truth. And so much of, rereading this book is reminding me of what is happening with Charlie Kirk and how we're being lied to about everything and how evil the people are that are doing the lying. It's an important book because you have to know what these people are capable of. First, I'm going to read a couple of sponsors. Home Title Lock. If you are a homeowner, you should listen to this because the FBI has been warning homeowners about a type